So welcome everybody to this latest GCSE revision video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the AQA GCSE Maths November 2018 Higher Paper 2, and I'll include a copy of the paper in the description below, which I recommend you have an attempt at before watching this video and going through the answers. Now I'll also include the individual grade boundaries for this paper for you to assess what grade you would have got once you've finished marking it. So let's get started on this AQA GCSE Maths Higher Paper 2 from November 2018. So getting straight into the paper, let's have a look at question 1. So it says, what does A and B represent in the probability of A and B? And that's going to be our fourth option. So no questions about that one. For question 2, it says P is at 4, 9 and Q is at minus 2, 1. Circle the midpoint of PQ. So the midpoint is basically where you add up the x ordinates and divide by 2. So 4 plus minus 2 is 2. Divided by 2 gives me 1. And add the y ordinates. 9 plus 1 is 10. Divided by 2 is 5. So we're looking for the coordinates of 1, 5, which is our first option. Then with question 3, it says which of these is a geometric progression? So geometric progression is where the numbers are basically have a common ratio from one to another. And here the correct answer is going to be our fourth option. Then looking at question 4, it says the bearing of A from B is at 310 degrees. Circle the bearing of B from A. Now in this, in terms of where the bearings are, so B is our starting point. A is 310 away from B. So that means A is going to be somewhere around here. So if we then look at the bearing of A to B, so it's going to be this bearing here. Which one is it more likely to be? Well, in terms of back bearings, it's going to be 130. Another quick way of doing it is just do 310 away from 180, gives us 330. Then looking at question 5, it says that a circle has a circumference of C and a diameter of D. C equals KD. What is a value? What value does the constant K represent? And that's going to represent pi, or you can spell it in words, but I would say that it equals pi. I definitely wouldn't use 3.14 in that question there, because it doesn't say that K has been rounded, or definitely don't use 3 because again it doesn't say that it's been rounded to the nearest integer. So looking at question 6, it says here is some information about 20 trains leaving a station, and the question is asking us to work out the mean number of minutes late. So in terms of this, what we need to do first is fill in this table. So fill in the midpoints. So I've got 7.5, I've got 12.5, and that's void. And again, so with the last one, it doesn't really make a difference because I've got t is over 50 and the frequency is 0. Whatever the midpoint is, I'm going to be multiplied by 0, which is going to give me an fx value of 0 anyway. So that's why it doesn't really matter what that one is. Then here, all I then need to do is just multiply these numbers together. So here I'm going to end up with 30. I end up with 52.5 and 12.5. And then, so in terms of the estimated mean, all I need to do is do the total frequency. So it's the sum of the total frequency over the total frequency. So adding all of these numbers up, I should end up with 95, and adding all of those numbers up should end up with 20. So I've got 95 over 20, which gives me an answer of 4.75. Then for B, it says the station manager looks at the information in more detail and has this set of data. It works out the estimate mean using this information. How does this estimate compare with the answer from part A? Now, because obviously we've got a lot more lower number of trains that are late, it's basically going to mean that the answer is going to be lower than part A. Then looking at question 7, it says work out the values of A and B. So this is comparing coefficients. So what we need to do first is expand the bracket. So here I've got 35x plus 40 plus 6x plus 3b. And that is all equivalent to ax plus 13. Then if I simplify the x's, I've got 41x plus 40 plus 3b. And that's all equivalent to ax plus 13. So looking at comparing the coefficients, 41 must equal a, and 40 plus 3b must equal 13. So I've got 3b plus 40 equals 13. So 3b equals 13 take away 40, which gives me an answer of it's going to be minus 27. And so then B equals minus 9. Then looking at question 8, it says 2 identical quarter circles are cut from a rectangle as shown, and the question is asking us to work out the shaded area. Now here the shaded area is always the big shape, which is the area of the rectangle, minus the area of the small shapes, which is basically going to be the 2 times 2 quarter circles, which is basically half a circle. So 2 times the quarter circles. So what I need to do first, now in terms of this, if this is the radius of the circle, then all of those 2 must add up to 12, which means that one of them must add up to 6, and so it does this. So here the area of the rectangle is going to be 12 times 6, which is 72. And then the area, and I'm going to call it the semicircle, because obviously 2 quarter circles equals a semi, is going to be pi times the radius squared, which is 6 squared, divided by 2, which gives me 36 pi divided by 2. And that's going to give me 18 pi. So then the shaded area is going to equal 72 minus 18 pi, and if I then reach for my calculator to work that out, so here I've got 72 minus 18 pi, and that gives me an answer of 15.45133. So any of those answers will be fine, or 15.5 to 1 decimal place. Then moving on to question 9, it says the diagram shows the position of a tap when off and fully on. So the tap can go from 0 degrees to 180. When the tap, when it's fully on, the water flows out of the tap at 14 litres per minute. That's going to be pretty important. The rate at which the water flows is directly proportional, is a direct proportion to the angle of the turn, and the tap is turned at 135 degrees. So the water flows into the tank with a capacity of 79.8 litres. Will it take less than 7.5 minutes to fill the tank? So what we need to do first is work out how much water is going to go in the tank at 135, how long it takes. So for this, we've got that it's going to be 135 over 180, and it goes at 14 litres per minute. So that, if I work that out on my calculator, is 135 divided by 180 times 14, and that's going to give me an answer of 10.5 litres per minute. So if there are 79.8 litres in the tank, it's going to take 79.8 divided by 10.5, and 79.8 divided by 10.5 gives me an answer of 7.6 minutes. Now, if 7.5 minutes is 7.5 minutes, then the answer will be no, it will take longer. So moving on to question 10, it says that triangle is an equilateral triangle. Is the perimeter of the triangle greater than 1 meter? So first things first, what we need to do is we need to find x. Now, if the triangle is equilateral, then this side is going to be the same as this side. So if I pick any 2 sides, I'm just going to go for those 2, so equal to 4x plus 5. I then get 2x minus 10 equals 5, so 2x equals 15, so x equals 7.5. So now that I know what x is, I've now then got to work out what the perimeter is and see if it's greater than 1 meter. So here there's a number of ways in which I could do this. I could work out the length of one of the sides and times it by 3, or I could substitute x equals 7.5 into all of those expressions and see what it gives me. It's entirely up to you which one you want to do. So I'd probably say the most common that people would do is pretty much add them all together. And so if I swap x equals 7.5, so it's going to be 7.5 minus 10 plus 4 lots of 7.5 plus 5 plus 10 times 7.5 minus 4. Now if I work that all out, I should end up with an answer of 105 centimeters. So is the perimeter of the triangle greater than 1 meter? Yes, it is by 5 centimeters. Then moving on to question 11, it says that an approximation of the value of pi is given by this calculation. Use your calculator to show that this approximation is within 0.1 of 3.14. So what we want to do is put this into our calculator. And if you've done that correctly, you should end up with an answer of 3.041. So then what we then want to do is basically do this answer 3.14, take away the calculation on that your calculator showed, and we can see that from that we get an answer of 0.9, and this is less than 0.1. And there you go. For question 12, all we need to do is just simply enter that onto your calculator. So remember to try and use your times 10 to the power of x button for your standard form. Use your fraction button as well, because obviously this is a calculator paper. And then just simply working out. If you've done this correctly, you should end up with an answer of 2.85 times 10 to the power of 6. Then with question 13, it says Ashraf is going to put boxes into a crate. The crate is a cuboid measuring 2.5 by 2 by 1.2 meters. Each box is a cube of length 50 centimeters. He does these calculations, and then we've got the calculation. He claims he can put 48 boxes in a crate. Evaluate Ashraf's method and claim. Now for this question, it's really important that you remember that you've got to mention two things. So you need to, one, state his claim is, or evaluate his method. Now in terms of comment on his method, you could either say that his method does not work because 1.2 meters does not divide exactly into 50 centimeters. You could also say that there's not a whole number of 50 centimeters into 1.2. 50 centimeters will not fit into 0.2 meters. So something along the lines of the fact that it won't fit exactly is going to be fine. And then a comment for his claim would be something like he can only fit 40 and that he can't fit 48 because obviously he's just not calculated correctly unless he's mushed one box into a space, which again is not going to be appropriate. For question 14, it says that the cross-section of a prism has n sides. Circle the expression for the number of edges of a prism, and that's going to be 3n. It's always 3 times the number of sides on the cross-section. Then for question 15, it says the volume of a medal is 45 centimeter cubed. The metal is made from copper and tin. The volume of copper to the volume of tin is in the ratio 22:3. The density of copper is 8.96 and the density of tin is 7.31. And the question is asking us to work out the mass of the medal. So first things first, what we need to do is work out the volume of copper and tin. Now how do we do that? Well, we know that the total volume is 45 and we've got to share it in the volume of 22/3. So the volume of the copper, do that one first, is going to be 45 divided by the total number of parts, which is 25, times the number of parts for copper, which is 22. And if I work that out, I should have an answer of 39.6, and the volume is going to be centimeter cubed. Then the volume for tin is exactly the same, 45 divided by 25 times the number of parts, which is 3, and that gives me an answer of 5.4 centimeter cubed. So then what I can then do is work out the mass of copper and tin. And again, that's by using the formula of dmv. If you think about your triangle, so density times the volume. So the mass of the copper is going to be 8.96 times, so that's the density, times 39.6, which gives me 354.816, and the mass of the tin is going to be 7.31 times 5.4, which gives me an answer of 39.474. And then all I then need to do is add these two numbers together. So let me just highlight what I'm adding together, add them up, and you should have an answer of 394.29. Then moving on to question 16, it says the cumulative frequency graph shows information about masses of 50 apples, and question 16a says use the graph to estimate the mean mass of apples. So here we've got 50, so we halve that, so that's going to be 25. And then once we've got that, we then want to project down, and I make it to be around about 106. Next question then says estimate the proportion of apples that have a mass of more than 115. So what we need to do here is find 115, which is just there, and again just do my rough line, then project across, and then we then take that away from the total, which is 50. So it's going to be 50 minus 42, which is 8, and then we need to write it as a proportion. Then the answer is going to either be 8 over 50 or 4 over 25, or you can write it as 0.16 or 16%, whichever of those would be absolutely fine. Then for question 17, it says A is a prime number, B is an even number. Circle the correct statement about n. So this is just got to pick some random numbers that are prime and even, substitute into the expression, and you should find that it could be both even or odd. For question 18, it says that a bag contains 20 discs, 10 are red, 7 are blue, and 3 are green. Marnie takes a disc at random before putting it back into the bag. Nick takes a disc at random before putting it back in the bag, and Ollie then takes a disc at random and puts it in the bag. Well, work out the probability that they all take a red disc. So the probability Marnie takes a red disc is a half, because there's 10 out of 20. Then they put it back, we've still got 10 out of 20 for when Nick picks, and when Ollie picks, that's also going to be a half, giving us a collective probability of an eighth. The next question then says that all 20 discs are in a bag. Reggie takes 3 discs at random, one after the other. After he takes one disc, he does not put it back in the bag, so it's without replacement. And Reggie, first disc is blue. Work out the probability that all 3 discs are different colour. So in terms of this one, you know that is blue, so we can either have, so his next 2 picks are either going to be red and what's the other colour? Green. So we want red or green, or green and red. So red and green is going to be well, how many red discs are there? There are 10, so it's going to be 10 out of 19 times, and it's going to be 3 out of 18, or it's going to be the green one first, which is 3 out of 19 times 10 over 18. So then if I then work that out, I've got onto my calculator. So 10 over 19 times 3 over 18 plus, and then 3 over 19 times 10 over 18. I should get an answer of 10 over 57, or if you want to write that as a decimal, we can get it as 0.1754 blah blah blah. Then looking at question 19, it says that choose one starter and one main. So there are 4 starters and 10 main courses to choose from. 2 of the starters and 3 of the mains are suitable for vegans. What percentage of possible lunches have both courses suitable for vegans? So the total number of combos is going to be 4 times 10, which is 40. And the total vegan combos is going to be 2 times 3, which is 6. So we've got 6 out of 40. We want to convert that into a percentage. So 6 over 40 as a percentage gives me an answer of 15%. Then with question 20, so this looks at algebraic proof. So what we want to do here is prove that this expression is a cube number. So first things first, if I expand the brackets out, I get 6n squared over n plus 2n cubed plus 6n cubed minus 6n. Then if I start to simplify, this n cancels with that n. This then becomes 8n cubed, and then I've got 6n minus 6n, so that cancels with that. So what I'm left with is 8n cubed, which if I wanted to, I could factorize to give me 2n cubed. Now here, a cube, as 8 is a cube number, times a cube number, n cubed is always going to be a cube, equals a cube number, or this is probably better, that any number cubed will equal a cube number. And that should be good enough to get you 3 marks. Then for question 21, it says that y is inversely proportional to the root of x. When y equals 4, x equals 9, work out the equation connecting y to x. So here we've got y is proportional to the inverse of root k. So I swap the proportional symbol with equals k over x. I then substitute the numbers in. So I've got 4 equals k over root 9, which is 3. 4 times root 9 equals k, so k equals 12. And then using this formula here, but swapping k equals 12, I get y equals 12 over root x. Then for question 21, it's saying work out the value of y when x equals 25. So I've got y equals 12 over the square root of 25, which is 12 over 5. And 12 over 5 gives me an answer of 2.4. Then moving on to our question 22. So it says simplify fully. So I'm guessing I need to factorize here. So factorize in the top, I get, I could take out x cubed. So I've got x cubed and I've got x squared minus 4 over, and then it's 3x minus 2. Now I notice that this is a dot, it's a difference of 2 squares. So I've got x cubed, x minus 2, x plus 2. Oh, do you know, I've put a 4 there, so let me just get rid of that. And that's all over 3x minus 2. And then I can cancel out the x minus 2, leaving me with x cubed, x plus 2 over 3. Or I can expand the brackets and write x4 plus 2x cubed over 3, and there is my simplified answer. Now for question 23, it says PQR is a straight line, P to Q to R is in the ratio 3 to 1, P to Q is A, circle the vector of R to Q. So all of this, or should I say all of that, this length here is A, and that represents 3 parts. So then for one part is going to be a third of A. So this here is going to be a third of A, but we want to go from this direction, so we want to go in the opposite direction. So the answer then is our third option, minus a third A. For question 24, it says here is a sketch of y equals f of x. It says the curve passes through these points. And the question is saying on the grid sketch the curve of y, and the function is x plus 2. So what this means is we're going to shift the curve 2 places to the left. So the x ordinates, I'm going to take away 2 in each of these x ordinates. That's going to be -4, -10. That's going to be -3, -3, -2, -2, -1, -1, and 0, 6. So I've just taken away 2 from each of those. So if I then plot these points, so -4, it's at -10. So that's here. At -3, it's going to be here. At 1, it's going to be, oh no, I've missed that one, that should be there. And at this one, it should be here. Let me just get rid of that point there. Then at 1, it should be here. At 0, it should be, there's not a point at 0. And 0, 6. And we just check, yep, that seems to be right. So then joining those points up, we should get something that looks like that. Yours hopefully will be a lot neater. Then looking at question 25, it says ABC and ACD are triangles. Work out the size of angle X. Now for this question, what we need to do first is we need to work out what this length here is. Now how do we do that? Well, if I just call that, let's not call it H. So looking at this, looking at the right angle triangle, I've got, this is going to be the opposite, this is the adjacent. So O equals, and then it's going to be, or over A equals tan of 49. Now A is 16, so O equals 16 times tan 49. And so O equals, and again, if I substitute that into my calculator, I get roughly about 18.4058. So if this is 14.18, 18, not 14, where I've got that from. So here we've got 18.4058. I then got to use the sine rule to work this out. So looking at the sine rule, let's call this A, that's capital A, this B, this little b. So here what we've got is we've got 18.4058 over sine x equals, and it's going to be 20 over sine 35. So just doing a bit of rearranging on this, what do I get? Well, I'm going to do some cross multiplying. So I've got 20 sine x equals 18.4058 times sine 35. I take the 20 over, so I get sine x equals 18.4058 sine 35 over 20, and then x equals the inverse sine of all of that. And which I should have an answer of around about 31.86075. And again, if you've rounded it up, that'll be absolutely fine. That's to 1 dp. So looking at question 26, this involves composite functions. So what I want to do here is I want to substitute g of x wherever I see an x. So that's what I'm going to substitute in. So here fg of x is going to equal x squared minus 2 over x squared minus 2 plus 2. Then if I simplify that, I get x squared minus 2 over x squared. Now I want to write the answer like this, so I need to use my knowledge of indices to do this. So I've got x squared over x squared equals, or minus, shall I say, 2 over x squared. Simplifying this gives me 1. Simplifying this, I get 2x to the minus 2, and there is my final answer. And that should be written there. Then for question 27, it says the point 3, 1 over 64 lies on the curve of y equals k to the power of x, where k is a constant. Show that the point a half-half lies on the curve. So what I want to do here is, first of all, find out what k is. So how do I do that? Well, I first of all substitute this as x, this as y to find k. So I've got 1 over 64 equals, and then it's going to be k cubed. So here k equals the cube root of 1 over 64, which equals 1 over 4. So k equals a quarter. So then the line has the equation of this. Now if the point lies on the line, then when x equals a half, y should equal a half. So what we're going to do is substitute x equals a half into this. So I get y equals a quarter to the power of a half. Now anything to the power of a half is just square roots. So that's y equals the square root of a quarter, which equals a half. So therefore a half lies on the curve. So something along those lines would get you the 3 marks. Then finally for question 28, the question 28 says that Izzy runs an 80-meter race in 14 seconds. During the first 6 seconds, her speed increases at a constant rate. During the last 8 seconds, her speed increases at a different constant rate. Her speed at 14 seconds is 2 meters per second more than her speed at 6 seconds. And we've got sketched the graph. And the question is asking us to work out the acceleration during the last 8 seconds. State the units of your answer. So for this, what we need to do is work out the gradient. And how do we do the gradient? Well, we draw a triangle. So we want to work this out. So we know that this is 2 because it's obviously 2 seconds quicker. And we know that this distance is 8. So then we're looking at 2 divided by 8, which is a quarter. Now the speed is measured in meters per second and the time is in seconds, so it's going to be 0.25 meters per second squared. Then for our final part, it says when Izzy finishes the 80-meter race, her speed is v meters per second, and the question is asking us to work out the value of v. So basically what they're saying is that the total area of this area under this curve is 80. So if I split this shape, or the area under the curve, into 2 shapes, that the total area equals 80. So for this, I've got shape A and I've got shape B. Now in terms of the dimensions, that this point here is going to be at v minus 2. So if this is v, this point here is 2 seconds less, that's going to be v minus 2. So then what I've got is I know that this distance here is v minus 2 and this height here is v. So then working out the area of A is going to be base times height divided by 2. So that's going to be the height, which is v minus 2, times 6 divided by 2, which is 6v minus 12 divided by 2, which gives me 3v minus 6. Now in terms of the area of B, which is a trapezium, so it's the 2 parallel sides, which is v plus v minus 2, times the height, which is 8, all divided by 2. So what I've got is I've got 2v minus 2 multiplied by 8 divided by 2. And if I expand the brackets, I get 16v minus 16 divided by 2. So that's 8v minus 8. So these two things added together must add up to 80. So 3v minus 6 plus 8v minus 8 equals 80. So adding them together, I get 11v minus 14 equals 80. So 11v equals 94. So then v equals 94 divided by 11, which gives me an answer of 8.54 recurring. And that would be my answer here. So 8.54 recurring. And there's the end of the paper. Now we'll put the grade boundaries in the description below, so once you've marked it you can see what grade you would have got for this individual paper.